there, gang, and welcome back to Real Reviews, your favorite movie review show. My name is Jameson Rabbit, and the man sitting next to me once, get this, he once dressed up like a lady to get into an apartment that was for women only. His name is Mike Roth.
At the time, I went as Buffy Wilson.
Yeah.
It was great times. It was kooky. What can I say?
Hilarity ensued.
If people know what I'm talking about, they might be laughing.
Nobody
Everybody
knows.
else is just waiting for a punchline.
It's an old reference. Only makes us look old. But
another fun fact, I'm the only one with a mustache.
it's true.
Yeah.
I made a grave mistake in shaving and lost a lot of facial hair overnight. Have faith. It'll all be back next week.
I will mark it on my calendar.
Yeah. So this week, Mike, it was kind of lean at the box office. The marquee did not have a lot of new offerings for us, so we have one of the good old Real Reviews list shows that I'm kind of excited to get into. But before we get to that, we do have a couple of movies we talk about.
Yes.
The first one is a movie that I saw this week called American Honey. American Honey from writer-director Andrea Arnold. It is the newest offering from the production company A24 that we love so much.
Yep.
And American Honey stars a new girl, Sasha Lane, as a young 18-year-old girl named Star. And Star is in a hopeless place, in a really, really bad family situation. We meet her. She is dumpster diving, trying to find some food to feed her little brother and sister. Mm-hmm. It's a bad situation where she's being molested by her dad. Her mom doesn't want anything to do with any of them. And she gets this opportunity. She meets this van load of fellow teenagers who are roaming the country in this van selling magazines. You may have seen these kids happen, every summer. Led by Shia Lebouf. Shia Lebouf is in this as a man named Jake, who is kind of like the second in command of this roving troop of teenagers, and she decides to run away with them. She ditches her little brother and sister with her mom, kind of tricks her mom into taking them. Her mom does not want them, and runs away. And the movie is then kind of us sitting in with this group. The movie is it's a lot of handheld. It's a lot of us in the van with them because we spend a lot of time in the van with them because they spend a lot of time in the van. A lot of time in some seedy motels. And just following this group of a dozen teenagers who have basically ran away. And it feels really unscripted. It feels really real. It feels like you're just kind of in on something. You get to see, it really is a look at what happens when you allow teenagers to make choices. And Star doesn't always make the best choices. She doesn't always make smart choices. You see her in jumping into vehicles with people. She does that a few times. She makes rash decisions and just says, I'm going to jump in with a stranger. Well, she jumped in with a stranger to join this group. It was just like, yeah, okay, I'll jump in the van. I'll leave my family. And it really focuses on, all these kids are in really desperate situations. They're really, the whole world around them is full of despair. Mm-hmm. And it kind of focuses on, if you have minimal options in your life, you're in a situation where you're probably not going to get out of it. That suddenly, for some people, it opens up a world of new choices. Because if you accept that, you know what, if I stay here, I'm never going to get out of this, I'm just going to keep, suddenly it's like, you know what, I can do whatever I want then. Yeah. Because there's no rules anymore. Because it doesn't matter. And that's kind of what this is all about. And you have Shia LaBeouf in this movie, and his character of Jake is this real chameleon who is teaching people he's trying to teach Star how to sell these magazines, to really scam everybody and become the person that whoever he's talking to wants him to be. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's a romance that builds and falls apart, and just all this stuff. And the movie is really weird. There's a great use of music. Music is very present throughout all of this, music of the time now, and a lot of really crazy imagery as they're traveling around the country, and the director just kind of focuses on weird things. It's a longer movie. It's almost 3 hours long.
Oh, wow.
It reminds me very much of, you remember the movie Kids that came out in 94?
Yeah, I remember that.
It's a lot of that. Like, here's what might be really happening under your nose. Here's what happened when kids are allowed to make their own decisions.
Kids was very dark.
It was, and this has some very dark moments in it as well. But it's very reminiscent of Larry Clark's Kids, which is kind of a big movie of its time. Mm-hmm. Had that feel to it. the weird thing to me as I'm watching it, I was saying, like, this feels really unscripted. It feels like these are authentic conversations and things that would just be happening if you just let these teenagers do what they want. And I'm reading about it, and sure enough, it's mostly just people that were found on the street during spring break. That's how Sasha Lane was discovered. Went down to spring break. Andrea Arnold, the director, went down, found her, and said, "You want to be in a movie?" And then even as they're shooting it, they shot the movie in chronological order, which never happens. And as they're going along, they just find a kid hanging out on a corner and be like, "Do you want to be in a movie? We need a kid to be in the van. We need a kid to jump over a fire. Sure, I'm in a movie now." And it was a lot of this, real weird. And of course, Shia Lebouf went full-on method actor. He got like a dozen tattoos during this movie.
Real ones?
Yeah.
Oh, poor guy.
You know, just went full-on. And he was really good. He was very good in this.
I'm actually surprised. He's not one of my favorite actors. I know he does a lot of method acting, but to me it never pans out. It just kind of feels like someone I just really would dislike as a person sometimes.
The thing with Shia is he's very committed to his work, right? I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like it or hate him, that's true. And in this movie, where he is basically the only real actor, the rest of them are just people, he's a good grounding force to kind of have everything go crazy around. He's kind of like the lightning rod in the middle that lets everything else kind of do its thing. So for that, I thought he was a really good choice because he's going to do what he needs to do no matter what. And it kind of held the movie together. It had its issues. You know, it wasn't spectacular, but I thought it was really interesting, and I thought it was really well done. And again, like all of these films we talk about from A24, it's original. You know, it feels like kids, but it has something to it that I haven't seen before. I like that.
I would love to see A24 become more mass. I know
there's that double-edged sword, though.
There is. I would like to see more of this stuff. I would like to see A24 inspire the pack instead of being separate from the pack.
I mean, it is starting to. I mean, Room was an A24 film. Ex Machina, these are Oscar-nominated films. I see that pop up, and I'm very happy. So ultimately, I gave American Honey 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was a good watch. Well worth checking out.
I'm going to have to check it out.
I guess I gave it 3 stars. Oh, they're 3.5. There
3.5.
Go check that out. What do you have on the marquee this week?
Well, I would have the big one that came out in every theater. That would be Inferno. This is the third film it's a series of books by Dan Brown. The first one, of course, is Da Vinci Code. Well-known book. Kind of well-known movie, but I think it was mainly because the book gained so much popularity.
It was a huge book.
Ron Howard directs all 3 of these, and of course we have the ever-popular Tom Hanks, who plays Robert Langdon, and this is also the third one he's done. In the book series, this is the 4th book, but the 3rd movie. And what we have here is Tom Hanks. He plays Robert Langdon. He wakes up in what he perceives as a hospital with a gash on his forehead. The doctor tells him that he was shot at, and he's suffering from some memory loss. So he has to kind of piece together what happened to him. Why is he in Italy? Because, well, last memory he had, he was still in the States. He has to figure out there's a lot of mysteries. There's a lot of things. If anybody is familiar with the books or the movies, he is like a historian, and he is a detective somehow.
Historical detective.
Yeah, I don't think he ever purposely is a detective. He's just a well-known historian that gets thrown into these extremely odd situations. He ends up having to hunt down a millionaire played by Ben Foster.
He's a billionaire.
He's a billionaire.
They mentioned that. That must be nice.
Yeah. They never really figured out why he was a billionaire, but he was very eccentric.
I don't care.
And he had this doomsday idea where he wants to kill off half the population because we are getting overpopulated. That's actually a story I've heard in a lot of evil villain stories. He wants to send a virus out called the Inferno virus that will kill off half the population. Robert Langdon, he has to find out where this virus is through a bunch of clues left by Zobrist.
Zobrist, yeah.
And it all ties in with Dante's Inferno. And,
I get the tie-in now.
Yeah, the levels of hell And there's all these clues that are left, and he has to pretty much fly around the world with his doctor. And there's 2 teams of people who are chasing him down. They leave hints in the beginning that these guys who are chasing him down that are supposedly evil are actually good guys, and they kind of give hints that the doctor might not be really what it is, and then there's this twist that really wasn't much of a surprise, but the way it was thrown out after the twist was even more bizarre and unthought. It was not thought out well as the beginning part. When you thought it was a bad movie, it just got kind of worse and more confusing. I'm thinking, I read the first book, I saw the first movie, and I saw the problems. The movie cannot translate as well as the book. The book is written well. There's a bunch of layers to it that movies really can't quite.
We're very green.
We're very
suddenly.
green all of a sudden. And this one, it really rang true. It was kind of messy. Well, what did you think?
No, I echo what you're saying about all this, that it was kind of a real mess going throughout. And I had trouble even just caring. Like, I got very bored with it because it felt like they're not going to tie this. They're not going to tie this up in a proper way. And it was tied up very lazily. Mm-hmm. And I liked Ben Foster in his role as Zobrist. Mm-hmm. Ben Foster's really good. It's all mostly in flashbacks. Yeah. I liked Felicity Jones. I thought she was fine as the Doctor, Sienna. I like Tom Hanks, obviously.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hellish imagery, a lot of crazy visions that he gets that they keep flashing to. And I liked how it was set up. I liked the theory of the overpopulation, and you're not going to like the answer to this overpopulation issue. But it felt like the second half of the movie just started spiraling. And it felt like they were just grasping at things to try and tie it up to the proper way.
Another thing that was great about this movie, and people are going to be surprised at the end of the story because really, the acting was great.
Yeah.
The imagery was great. The locations were great. I mean, awesome. They rivaled James Bond. I think what Ron Howard wants this series to be is like a thinking man's James Bond. Unfortunately, the story is not really written well, and the story, it doesn't tie together in a thoughtful way, so it really can't be a thinking man's James Bond.
It starts to go down the same rabbit hole that National Treasure did with Nicolas Cage, where the first one was like, ooh, I like this, the riddles and the conspiracy theories, all these things. And then the second one, you're like, okay, I see that you can't hold this up much longer.
Yeah.
And I feel like this was just, it was a struggle, and it felt like, first off, I don't know who was asking for this third movie. It was quite a distance from the originals. Yeah. The second one wasn't well received. Angels and Demons wasn't really well received. It was a surprise that they made Inferno, and then it just felt like, we have to make it. Let's just make it.
Yeah.
Let's get people together. We got a nice cast. Let's make it. And I was surprised at how bored I was during this movie.
Well, I think a lot of it is, in the beginning, they made you kind of feel like you already had the whole movie figured out. Yeah. But it took forever to get to the point where you're like, aha, finally, they're revealing everything I knew. And then after they reveal it, it's like, wow, you kind of made this.
Trombone.
Yeah, you made the story even dumber afterwards.
I agree.
What the hell?
I agree. I ended up giving the movie 1.5 out of 5 stars.
Did you?
Yeah, it wasn't good.
I wanted to give this better because I liked how it looked. I liked the acting. I liked the sets. The story
Didn't
is
like
where
the movie,
it failed.
though.
The movie, I gave it a 2.
5.
Sorry.
Yeah. No thanks. We don't need any more of these. Ron Howard, move on. You've got much better things to do. So do you, Tom Hanks. Speaking of things that Tom Hanks does, let's talk about our list this week.
All right.
Because it feels like this is kind of the month of Tom Hanks. Unwittingly, we talked about The Burbs last week.
Yeah.
This week we're talking about Inferno, and we are talking about our top 5 favorite Tom Hanks movies. This is not the best Tom Hanks movies.
No.
This is very subjective.
Yeah.
Our favorite Tom Hanks movies. He has man, does this guy have a history of films.
Every single one of these is tied to a great memory of mine. He has great films.
Yeah.
These might not be his best films. Actually, people will argue with me and probably win. These aren't his best films, but they are great to me, and I think a lot of people would agree, even though these might not be his greatest, but they are fun. A lot of his movies are just well acted by him.
Do you have any, before we get into our list, do you have any honorable mentions you'd like to throw out?
No, but I bet you do.
I'm going to cut it down to 3. I have a list of like 12 honorable mentions. Real quickly, Castaway. Castaway, honorable mention, that would be my number 6 film. Love it. A tour de force of one man acting against a volleyball. Really good. Philadelphia, the movie that won him his first Academy Award.
Yep.
Really, really powerful movie. And lastly, Sleepless in Seattle. One of my favorite rom-coms. He does some great rom-coms with Meg Ryan, and Sleepless in Seattle is my favorite of the 3. So that's my honorable mention list. Let's get into our top 5, though. What do you have as your number 5, Tom Hanks?
Our number 1 was our throwback last week. It was The Burbs. I love the situation where we have kind of a horror movie, but they don't base it on what you're supposed to be afraid of. They base it on the fear of the people around what was horrifying. Tom Hanks, this is back before he started getting into his serious roles. Him just playing a funny, nosy, overstressed neighbor, being part of the cul-de-sac, trying to figure out what's wrong with the weird neighbors. It's hilarious. Back in 1989. It's check it out. I told you last week to check it out.
If you want to hear more about the
again,
watch last week's episode.
Yes,
that was our throwback.
And what do you have?
My number 5 is a movie that I truly love, and it's actually one of the first movies that really made me buy into Leonardo DiCaprio as being a really solid actor, because I watched him hold his own against Tom Hanks. I'm talking about 2002's Catch Me If You Can from director Steven Spielberg. Tom Hanks plays an agent named Carl Hanratty who's trying to track down the con man, Frank Abagnale Jr., played by Leonardo DiCaprio. And I love it. It is a lot of fun. There's a lot of craziness going on. Tom Hanks has a lot to do, and I just love the back and forth of him and Leonardo DiCaprio. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. That is a great film, too. Didn't make my list, but great film.
What did make your list as your number 4, though?
Number 4, Joe versus the Volcano. Way back when, I actually trekked pretty long ways to get to Eastgate when it was fairly new.
Yes.
And the bus only went to Easttown Mall, so I had to pretty much get on the highway and walk it and climb over a barbed wire fence to see Joe versus the Volcano. It was in a small theater, and I was just amazed. This was, at the time, I was very young, and this was the most artful film I've ever seen. Tom Hanks plays a depressed, almost suicidal character, and he goes through all these trials, meeting the same person over and over again, which I think is the first film he did with Meg Ryan also.
Yes, you're right.
And Meg Ryan played, 5, 6 different characters?
It's confusing the first time I saw it.
As he's finding everything out about what makes life great. And the movie starts off great, just this kind of dull, gray world where he has a terrible job and phosphorescent lights are just making him have a migraine, and he's having a terrible time. And it ends with him willingly giving his life for a village near the Hawaii that loves orange soda.
Yeah.
It's
a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. It was very creative. I love that movie. It is one of my top movies.
Nice.
Not just...
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I struggled with that one the first time I saw it because I wasn't sure what I was seeing. And on subsequent watches, this was like a staple on Comedy Central for a while.
Yeah.
Like during the summer, it would just be on, and I watched it a lot.
And fun fact, this was 1 year after The Burbs.
How about that?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh, very crazy. My number 4 is a movie that came out in 1995. Look, Tom Hanks does a lot of historical dramas. He just recently did Sully a couple of months ago. He does a lot of those. And one of my favorite is with Ron Howard, 1995, Apollo 13. Tom Hanks plays astronaut Jim Lovell, based on the true story of those astronauts in Apollo 13 that had, they had a problem.
Yeah.
They called Houston and told them about it. And Tom Hanks is the steadying force throughout this movie as, Kevin Bacon goes crazy and just all of the stuff that goes on. He plays, like I talked about last week, he is the everyman. And I love him in this, and his true emotions always seem to come out. And it's what makes his acting performances so strong to me is that it feels genuine. He just falls into roles. And I just love this movie. It's a fun movie. I rewatched it last year. I was in the hospital, spending the night in the hospital. This movie came on. I was transfixed by it all over again.
Yeah.
It's a great flick.
I love it when they're going around the dark side of the moon, and there's just those quiet moments where
Yeah.
you just kind of feel like, oh, everybody's losing hope and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just very powerful.
See, Ron
very
Howard,
exciting
Ron
at the
Howard,
same time.
Tom Hanks. Let's do more of this, less Inferno.
Yeah, you could do with 3 less of those Inferno movies.
Speaking of 3, sir, what is your number 3?
Good tie-in.
Thank you.
I have what a lot of people should agree will be on my list, should be on everybody's list, Saving Private Ryan. Back in 98, him and his team was in World War II, and they had to go find Matt Damon, who was Private Ryan. They found out 3 brothers entered the war, 2 were dead, and they had to get Private Ryan out and back to his mom. It was a big PR situation.
After the Sullivan brothers.
After the Sullivan brothers. And Tom Hanks really thought this mission, wasn't really up to par, but he did his duty, and he did it. And there was a lot of emotion about it, and when they found him, it was just, this is an extremely emotional movie. And not only is it emotional, Steven Spielberg was the director, by the way, but this spawned off some great series. There's Band of Brothers that played on HBO. There was a video game that a lot of people know called Call of Duty that was also, I believe, inspired or directed by Steven Spielberg. And it was at the top of its genre for quite a long time. It's been overthrown since, but fantastic movie. One of the best war intro films ever.
It's funny, on the radio show here on 103.5 The Sun.
Nice.
Plug.
Good plug.
My son and I did a top 5 favorite movie moments list, and the opening to Saving Private Ryan was one of mine. It is one of the most impactful opening scenes in all movies.
Yeah, it's a jaw dropper. If you have not seen it, you're probably living under a rock. Try to come out of that rock and rent this movie. Just watch the first 10 minutes. If you don't love it, turn it off and go back underneath that rock, because no one should dislike this beginning.
Absolutely. Excellent choice. My number 3 came out in 1988. It was a huge comedy, and it is quintessential comedic Tom Hanks to me. The movie is Big. From director Penny Marshall, he plays a man named Josh who switches bodies with the kid, and it is at the top of the body switching movies, which in the 80s was a huge franchise of its own.
Oh, yeah.
A genre of body switch movies. And the comedic, playful chops that Tom Hanks brought to this movie made him so endearing, made it so believable, and he was so playful in this movie. You could believe that this really happened.
That piano scene is still referenced
There
today.
it is.
There it is. It's still like one of those great scenes that people reference even to this day. That's a huge movie.
It's so good. So it's my number 3. I love it.
Yeah, I got a movie also by Penny Marshall.
Ooh.
That's my number 2.
Yeah.
League of Their Own in 1992. When this movie came out, I was working in a movie theater. That movie theater is long gone. But one of my favorite movies out of that theater was League of Their Own. When it started off, there was no press about it. No one really knew about it. It was pretty dead. And as the word of mouth kept on going, you would see the crowds get bigger and bigger and bigger. In a month, it was more sold out than it was the week it came out. It was a huge success. You have Tom Hanks. He plays Jimmy Dugan. He is a coach of a baseball league that was filled with women. This was during World War II. All the men were off, so Americans needed entertainment, so they had women play baseball. You have Gina Davis playing Dottie Hitson, Lori Petty, you have Madonna, you have Rosa O'Donnell, you have all these great
Such a good movie.
Great cast. You had a great song coming out of it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite lines, there's no crying in baseball, which I could say with anything that I feel like there shouldn't be crying. It's a great movie.
It's one of his best roles
Yeah.
in a secondary role where he's not the lead. This is a Gina Davis movie.
Yeah.
And his Jimmy Dugan is terrific. There's a moment where one of the girls receives a telegram from the war that her husband has died, and suddenly the movie gets emotional for a minute. And his reaction is he grabs the telegram from the guy, is like, no, give it to me, and you're like, yeah. That's Tom Hanks acting right there.
And it was such
so good. So much fun.
It was so great because in the beginning he didn't care. Yeah. He was just a washed up baseball player that he was drinking and he didn't care about what was going on. And then
easy paycheck.
Then he bonds with these women.
It's a really one of the more rewatchable movies out there.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, good choice.
Before we go to our number 1, did you purposely? Did we somehow purposely make it so not a single movie was on the same on our list?
No. A lot of consternation went into my list.
Curious, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is a movie we talked about a couple of years ago here on the show as one of our throwbacks. It came out in 2002, the same year as Catch Me If You Can, from director Sam Mendes. It's Road to Perdition. Tom Hanks plays Michael Sullivan. And this is the first movie that I can remember where he wasn't necessarily the good guy. Mm-hmm. He was a bad guy. There were issues.
Yeah.
He was a hitman for the mob, and he had his issues. But he's on the road with his son. They're on the run, and he's just incredible in this movie. I'm blown away every time I watch this movie. It is Tom Hanks putting on a performance, and opposite, Paul Newman and Jude Law, and it is such a good movie, and I'm a sucker for these gangster movies, and it was great getting Tom Hanks in one.
I knew this was going to make your list, because that movie was on a list that we had earlier. I think it was a gangster list or something like that. And I was the first time I watched it in a long time, and it's a good movie.
Yeah, that's really my number 2. But what's your number 1?
My number 1, no one will probably agree with me, but this was my very first rated R movie when I was a kid. HBO, and my dad wasn't around, so I watched HBO, and this was one of the movies that played 8 zillion times every day. It's Bachelor Party, 1984. We have the soon-to-be married man. All his friends get together to throw him one big last bash. This is his first big film after Splash, which was his first big film. Yeah. Really, there's nothing deep about this. It's just a bunch of guys having wild, raunchy fun, and it's totally inappropriate.
Another previous throwback movie that we talked about.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And Tom Hanks makes this list
we like
a
Tom
lot.
Hanks.
But if you haven't seen Bachelor Party, don't watch it with your kids. No. Don't let them stay at home with the movie by themselves. No. And when you're older, if you happen to be a kid who watched this, then you could tell your parents.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but not until much later, because they'll feel guilty earlier.
I like it. My number 1 is a movie that you talked about just a few moments ago. My number 1 is a movie that came out in 1998 from director Steven Spielberg. It's Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan is one of my favorite films. I recently rewatched it. I watched it with my 14-year-old son, and every time I'm just blown away by the humanity that Tom Hanks brings to this movie. And he is the center of it all. His whole platoon, they're gravitated towards him, and the honesty and just the genuine person that he is able to keep this band together on a mission and in a time that they don't want to be a part of. Yeah. And it's Tom Hanks just is incredible. And there are so many moments in this movie I could point to where I'm like, that is somebody just putting on a performance. And it is just, it's fairly incredible, and throughout the entire, from beginning to end, I absolutely love it. Saving Private Ryan is my favorite.
Yeah,
there you go.
I think it's most people's favorite.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the memories I had with League of Their Own Bachelor Party, it would have been higher.
Sure. So those are our favorite Tom Hanks movies. I love talking. Man, If you
haven't seen a Tom Hanks movie, go out, pick out any of these.
Not Inferno.
Just not Inferno. Don't watch Bachelor Party in front of
let's take a quick look at what is coming out the weekend of November 11th. We have 4 movies that will be coming out that weekend. The first one, Almost Christmas, starring Danny Glover and a whole group of characters. Everyone comes home to live under one roof for the holidays, and it doesn't quite work out as easily as you remember it.
Yeah.
Check that out. The next one we have is Arrival, big movie with Amy Adams. Aliens show up. We need to make contact with him. So we send Amy Adams out to talk to him.
Yeah, that one actually looks pretty interesting.
It looks really interesting to me. The next one, Shut In, a horror movie starring Naomi Watts and Jacob Tremblay, where she is caught in a blizzard and has to try and save this young boy who may or may not be real.
You got me at horror movies.
All right, then. And last but not least is Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. The new Ang Lee movie about a young man who is a war hero coming back from Iraq and his history with that. It looks pretty interesting to me. So those will all be coming out the weekend of November 11th. Next week, we're going to be talking about Doctor Strange. We're going to be talking about Trolls.
I'm looking forward to that.
And there's something else, too, but I can't. Hacksaw Ridge, another war movie. Those will all be on the marquee for us next week. You can, of course, before we go, we have to thank our sponsors, Marcus Theaters. Thank you for sponsoring the show. We do enjoy the Palace here in Sun Prairie. If you want to find more from us, catch us on Facebook and Twitter. Real Reviews TV is where you need to go. It's time for us to go, speaking of that. So until next week, my name is Jameson.
I'm Mike Roth.
Thanks for watching.